So the All Blacks versus Fiji game has come to a close. The All Blacks winning it 47 points to 5. And this is the last performance for both of these sides before they head into the Rugby Championship for New Zealand and the Pacific Nations Cup for Fiji. And I think both can still take a lot from this contest. New Zealand, their debutants were all very strong. One of them called upon a little bit earlier than anticipated with the injury of Cortez Ratama. But hopefully he is all right and will be there for the Rugby Championship. For the Fijians, they also suffered an early injury at 9 with Frank Lamani going off. That brought on Simeone Kuravuli, who I did feel had a solid performance. But first of all, reading through the try scorers, we saw quite a few of them for New Zealand in this game. Caleb Clark, Cortez Ratama, Billy Proctor on debut. Massive performance from that man and definitely should have more caps to come. Adi Savia, Sevu Reece, Ethan de Groot, and also George Bell did make his way off the bench, also having his debut, managed to score the try for Vilimoni Botitu. He was the lone try scorer in this match for the Fijians. There were a lot of times that Fiji got extremely close to breaking that All Blacks line, but sadly just the one little moment stopped them from being able to score. I know that Wanyanyolo got extremely close, but then in the end just dropping that ball over the line. But in terms of some of the stats, I think the one that really stands out for me in this game is Fiji's missed tackles. They missed 53 throughout this game. They did have 146 attempted, only made 93 of them. So that is something that they will definitely want to improve on as they make their way towards the Pacific Nations Cup. Their set piece wasn't really the smoothest either. Unfortunately, losing a couple scrums, losing a few lineouts, whereas that is something that the All Blacks actually were a lot better in this game compared to the one up against the English. And maybe that was because they were mixing it up a little bit, going to the front, middle, and the back of the lineout. Or maybe it's just because Maro Itoje wasn't there to be able to slap that ball onto the side of the English. But the All Blacks themselves, they only tackled at 78% throughout this contest, making 89 tackles of the 114 attempted. So still not the best performance in terms of defensively for the All Blacks, but only conceding the one try from missing that many tackles. I think as a coach, you take that every day of the week. And something else you would take every day of the week is being able to get 694 running meters. This midfield combination of Anton Lienert-Brown and Billy Proctor, it was brilliant from start to finish throughout this game, and it's really now put the question out there, is that going to be the 12 and 13 combo in the Rugby Championship, or will Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane once again get that chance due to having the experience? Few other players who really stepped up. Caleb Clark, I thought, was immense out on that left wing, probably unlucky to only score the one try, but that man is proving a lot of people wrong at the moment. There could be the argument that maybe there should have been more of a defensive effort when Fiji were able to score their lone try, but I think in the end, it was just one of those ones that the whole back line did get it slightly wrong. And of course, Clark, a part of that back line, but overall, his running game was strong. He was good under the high ball, and I look forward to seeing him in that number 11 jersey throughout the Rugby Championship. Beauden Barrett, he had a pretty quiet game. At 15, he didn't really have to do too much in terms of the attack. We saw a couple more chips throughout the second half, but more so the ball was going through Damian McKenzie at 10, who once again, I feel, had a very solid game. Kicked at 86% from the kicking tee. Also managed to take some massive hits, including one that was a disallowed try. So he took a massive shot for nothing, but that man just keeps on getting up and overall kept that backline flowing so that we could see Anton Lienert-Brown and Billy Proctor really thrive in this game that was also due to Cortez Ratama in the early stages. Jacobson at number 6, I think that man cemented that jersey. And Blackadder, after a bit of a shaky start, you could even argue that he has got that 7 jersey for the Rugby Championship. In terms of the reserves, though, that is where the impact really came for this All Black side. When you have Wallace Satiti make his way off the bench, and within the first couple minutes, he rips the ball away and ends up pretty much with a try assist, that is something that tells you he is going to be a bright prospect for the future. I thought Pasilio Tosi, he was sensational off the bench, getting the line break, getting the turnover. Sam Derry, he got a turnover. Hotham, he had to come on the field a lot earlier than anticipated due to the Cortez Ratama injury. He kept that backline flowing, and then also George Bell did decently, scoring himself a try on debut. For the Fijians, I felt Semi Radradra was pretty strong. You wouldn't have thought this was his first minutes for the Fijians throughout 2024. Armstrong Ravula's kicking early was causing New Zealand a few problems. It was actually off that cross kick that the Fijians did manage to score themselves a try. But for me, there was one player for Fiji that stood up much more than the rest, and that was Tavita Ikanaveri. That man has such a huge work rate. He's a phenomenal player, and at times you just wish he had a few more players in that Fijian side who were working just as hard as he was, because he was making beautiful tackles. In fact, he stopped a few clean breaks just with one great tackle attempt. One in particular that comes to mind was when he was able to tackle Anton Leonard-Brown, and he just keeps on working, keeps on getting in the breakdowns. Lineouts were a bit shaky, but once again, I don't think that was necessarily all his fault. I think that was just more Fiji weren't quite getting it right, but overall just a really strong performance from that man. And at the front row, in terms of the Fijian bench, for players who did have a little bit of impact, I think that Ilya Whanakaivata, he's really pushing for that number 8 or anywhere in that loose forward trio, and I think that he may get it in that Pacific Nations Cup if he keeps on playing the way that he is. But these two sides, like I mentioned, they have a little bit of a break, and then they are heading into the Pacific Nations Cup as well as the Rugby Championship. New Zealand's first games will be up against Argentina. That is in around 3 weeks' time. For the Fijians, they've got around 5 weeks. So I'd like to think during that time they'll be able to build up a bit more chemistry. Quite a few of these guys playing for the Fijian draw, but of course adding those international players into the mix as well. We need to see better defence from Fiji if they want to be competitive throughout that Pacific Nations Cup. They've got some tough games at the end of the year. I believe they are playing Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So those will be a few great matches for us to keep an eye on how Fiji are progressing up against the Northern Hemisphere. I do still want to give Fiji quite a bit of credit for this game, though. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's one-sided, and there were some that were saying New Zealand should have won this by even more, but Fiji, even with those missed tackles, even with the lack of possession and a lack of territory, they still managed to have 382 running meters. They had 26 defenders beaten, 6 clean breaks, 18 offloads. One thing can be certain when you've got a Fijian side out there on the field, you're going to be entertained, and that is exactly what everyone at the stadium as well as watching were by this contest. But for New Zealand, up against the Argentines, they have got some big questions to ask. Who is going to be in their starting lineup? Who are going to be the guys that come off the bench as impact players? And how are they going to find the right combinations as they progress throughout that Rugby Championship comp? But thank you all very much for tuning in to this review. I do want to know who you guys would give man of the match to, so do let me know in the comments. For me, I believe there are about 5 contenders in this match. I would give it to Anton Leonard-Brown with the way he was able to play. He just kept the momentum shifting forward for the All Blacks. I think Billy Proctor also would be an honourable mention alongside Caleb Clark as well as Jacobson. And you'd even say maybe Damien McKenzie's name could get thrown in the hat for how he played throughout this matchup. But nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in. We are back with Australia versus Georgia in a very short moment, so be sure to also check that out, and I will see you all for the next one.